You are surrounded by people every day, and you have never felt more alone in your life. Not lonely in the obvious way, not isolated. You have people around you, you show up, you participate. You smile at the right moments and say the right things. But something underneath all of it never quite connects. Like you are watching the room from just slightly outside of it. Like everyone else received a manual for how to belong, and yours never arrived. You have probably blamed yourself for this for years. Told yourself you are too difficult, too different, too much. What nobody told you is that this feeling has a very specific psychological explanation, and it has almost nothing to do with you being broken. The explanation starts somewhere most people would not think to look. Most people walk into a social situation and absorb the surface of it, the conversation, the laughter, the general energy. That is enough for them. They feel included. They feel comfortable. Your brain does not stop at the surface. It reads the tension underneath the laughter. It notices who is performing and who is genuine. It picks up on what is not being said. All of that information comes in at once, and it makes the room feel more complicated than it looks to everyone else standing in it. Research from the Max Planck Institute found that individuals with higher cognitive and emotional sensitivity process social environments with significantly more depth than average. They detect more. They register more. And carrying that much information in a room that nobody else seems to find overwhelming creates a quiet kind of exhaustion that is almost impossible to explain to someone who does not feel it. You are not bad at socializing. You are doing far more of it than anyone around you realizes, and that extra processing has been happening since long before you were old enough to understand it. Think back to being young, not just school, earlier. The moments when you felt the gap for the first time. Maybe you preferred talking to adults over kids your age. Maybe you found group games less interesting than being alone with your thoughts. Maybe you cried at things other children walked past without blinking. None of that was immaturity. It was the opposite. Psychologist Maraka Gross spent decades studying children who were significantly more advanced than their peers. She found one pattern more consistent than any other: social disconnection. Not from cruelty, not from shyness. From a simple mismatch between what the child needed from connection and what was available to them. The interests did not match. The depth did not match. The conversations did not reach far enough. That child grew up. The mismatch did not disappear. It just moved into adult rooms with adult versions of the same gap. The feeling of not belonging did not start with you failing somewhere. It started with the environment failing to meet you. But the environment is only part of it. Something else is running underneath. Something internal. Most people want connection. You want that too, but you also want something else. You want to be understood. Fully. At the level where the real version of you lives, not the version that performs well in public. Those are two very different things to search for. And the second one is far harder to find. You can be in a room full of people who like you and still feel completely unseen. Because liking someone and understanding them are not the same thing. Most social environments offer the first. Almost none offer the second. Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent years studying the human need to belong. His research confirmed that belonging requires more than proximity and positive interaction. It requires a sense of being genuinely known. When that piece is missing, the belonging does not register, no matter how many people are present. So you keep showing up. And you keep leaving feeling like something did not quite land. Not because you did anything wrong, because what you were actually looking for was never on offer. Being liked by many people and being known by even one, those are entirely different experiences. You have been chasing the second in places that only offered the first. And the longer that search goes on without result, something starts to shift inside. After enough time in rooms where you never quite land, you stop expecting to land. You start adjusting before you even walk in. You scan the group and figure out which version of yourself will work best here. You edit before you speak. You soften the unusual parts, dial down the depth, match the energy around you even when it feels nothing like your own. You become very good at fitting in, and it costs you something every time. Sociologist Irving Goffman wrote about this decades ago, the performance of self in everyday life. Most people do some version of it. But for people who feel chronically out of place, it becomes the primary way they exist in social spaces. Always managing the impression, always one step removed from actually being present. And then you go home. And the exhaustion hits, not from the evening, from the effort of holding a version of yourself together that was never fully you. Fitting in is not the same as belonging. One asks you to shrink, the other requires you to be seen. That distinction matters more than it might seem. because most people confuse the two their entire lives. When you spend years adjusting to different rooms, something starts to blur. You stop being sure which version of you is the real one. You act one way with family, another way with colleagues, another way with people you have just met. And somewhere in all that shifting, the core version gets harder to locate. Psychologist Kenneth Gergen called this the saturated self, the experience of having so many performed versions of yourself that the authentic one becomes difficult to access. It does not mean the authentic self is gone. It means it has been buried under layers of adaptation built up over years of trying to make rooms work that were never quite right for you. The not belonging feeling, at this stage, is not just about other people. It becomes about yourself. You stop knowing where you fit because you have spent so long fitting everywhere else first. Losing yourself to fit in is a slow process, but at some point the version you perform and the version you actually are stop recognizing each other. And yet, underneath all of this, there is something worth understanding about what this feeling is actually pointing toward. The feeling of not belonging is painful, but it is not meaningless. It is your internal signal that the environments you have been in have not matched what you actually need. That is useful information, not a verdict, not a life sentence, a signal. Belonging, real belonging, does not come from finding a group that tolerates you. It comes from finding people who require no performance, where the full version of you is not just accepted but actually wanted. That kind of connection exists. It is rare, and it is almost never found in the places where most people are looking. Research from the University of Michigan showed that even one relationship marked by genuine mutual understanding produced stronger well-being outcomes than dozens of surface-level social connections. 1. That is all the research required to shift the results entirely. You do not need to belong everywhere. You never did. You just need to stop measuring yourself against rooms that were never built for someone like you. The problem was never that you could not belong. The problem was that you kept trying to belong in places that had no room for the real version of you. So when you pull all of this together, what does it actually mean? Your brain reads social rooms at a depth most people never reach. The disconnection started in childhood and followed you into every room since. You search for understanding in places that only offer acceptance. Years of adjustment have cost you access to your own identity. And all of it has been sending you a signal you were never taught to read correctly. None of this means you are destined to feel this way forever. It means you have been using the wrong map. The goal was never to belong everywhere. It was to find the few places, the few people, where belonging does not require you to disappear first. That search does not end with more rooms. It ends with fewer, better ones. If this gave words to something you have carried for a long time, the next video goes directly into why intelligent people are almost always lonely, and the specific reasons behind it. Link is right here. Subscribe if this kind of content is what you have been looking for. And stop apologizing for needing more than most rooms are willing to give.